Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 7th Dr. M. L. Shrikant Memorial Lecture in the honor of our late Dean Dr. Shrikant, a respected teacher, a visionary leader, and a management thinker who gave shape to SPJIMR for nearly 3 decades. Under his leadership, the institute rose to become one of the top-ranking institutions in this country. Dr. Shrikant's legacy lives on through the institute's commitment to community and character. He was an innovator in his own right, taking bold decisions based on his firm convictions that set the school on a different path. He refused to follow the herd and instead committed to building managers and leaders who could deliver superior results while at the same time being understanding and sensitive towards the society. In doing so, Dr. Shrikant not only signaled to the nation about the importance of management education, but also set the tone for it. Today, as we gather to honor his memory and legacy, let us all strive to carry forward his vision of excellence, determinations, and innovation in nurturing the responsible leaders for the future. Now, I would like to invite our Dean, Dr. Varun Nagraj, our Chief Guest and Speaker of the evening, Mr. Neil George, MD Nivea, family of late Dr. M. L. Shrikant, Dr. Surya Sir, and Abbas Ali Sir, to please join us on the stage for the lighting of the lamp ceremony. Sandhya ma'am, you can also join. Please. Now, let us take a moment to reminisce and reflect on some of the cherished memories of Dr. Shrikant shared by our faculty members as we watch their testimonials on this video. Moving forward, I am honored to introduce our guest speaker for this evening, Mr. Neil George, Managing Director of Nivea India. He is an alumnus of SPJIMR and London Business School. Mr. George is a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of experience in FMCG industry. He has held various senior leadership positions in companies such as Beiersdorf, P&G, Reckitt Benckiser before joining Nivea India. He is also a member of CII National Committee on FMCG and sits on the Executive Council of Indian Society of Advertisers. Mr. Neil George is also known as a strong voice on ethics and has consistently over the last several years spent time in small group interviews with our PGDM students, engaging them on topics such as ethics in the real world. Mr. George has an extensive track record of success in driving business growth, building strong teams, and creating a culture of innovation. He is known for his ability to connect with consumers and deliver on their needs and expectations. Under his leadership, Nivea India has seen a significant growth and has become a leading player in the personal care industries. Tonight, he is not here as a business leader, but as a student of Dr. Shrikant, and will be sharing his personal experience and thoughts on the legacy of Dr. M.L. Shrikant. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Neil George.
Thank you for that extraordinary introduction. So before we start, I have a very special friend who is going to join me today, and Sandhya Malik, my classmate from SPJIMR from the batch of 94-96. So she's going to join me today. And so to start the evening, I'm going to ask Sandhya to come forward.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you first, Neil, for giving me this chance. It's after years that I'm singing here in SPJIN, and I can't tell you, it's such an emotional feeling. Yeah. And thank you, ma'am. I mean, I can't express what SPJIN and Dr. Shrikant has made to our life. It's given us a career, a life, and to me also a husband. You can start the music.
This one? You want just music or video also?
Only the music. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Thank you, Sandhya, for that beautiful prayer, which spreads or lays out the perfect canvas for our session today. But a little explanation of that prayer and why we do that at the beginning of a session like this. The Guru Mantra, also known as the Guru Maha Mantra, is a powerful and revered chant in Hinduism that is dedicated to the Guru or spiritual teacher. The Guru is seen as a guide who helps to dispel the darkness of ignorance and leads the disciple towards enlightenment and liberation from the cycle of reincarnation. The mantra is a way to show respect, gratitude, and humility towards the Guru for the knowledge and guidance he or she provides. The three deities mentioned in the shloka, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, are considered the Trimurti and represent the different aspects of the divinity in Hinduism. The Guru is seen as a representation of all the three and is considered to be the embodiment of the divine. Good evening, Dean Varun Nagaraj, family members and well-wishers of Dr. Shrikant, members of the faculty at SPJIMR, Professors V.K. Murthy, Professor Anil Kulkarni, who is personally here, and Dr. Ranjan Banerjee, who are not, some of you are not present here, but helped me prepare for this evening. Professors Abbas, Renuka Kamath, and Jagdish. Fellow classmates from the batch of 1996, some of whom are here in person. And to those watching live on the live stream, my fellow alumni, and most importantly, the students and fellows at SPJIMR. For one, this is a tremendous honor for me to be invited to give this lecture. I'm truly grateful to be speaking to you on this august occasion and speaking to you about my memories of my dean, your dean, our dean, the late Dr. Manish L. Shrikant. I hope I do justice to Sir, and hence my conversation with all of you for the next 30-odd minutes is titled, To Sir with Love, Memories of a Man, Mentor, and Missionary. It is only apt that I begin my ode to Sir the man. My earliest memories of Dr. Shrikant, like many of the alumni, was when I met him in 1994 as part of the group discussions for the PGD entrance programs. And then, over the many years, I had the fortune of working and studying under him. And also once, a couple of times, I was invited to his house in Juhu when he used to have his special prayer sessions. And over the years, my interactions, although limited after I left campus, have all left me with this indelible, life-changing yet simple impressions of Sir. I thought it apt to take a leaf out of the memorial speech of Larry Ellison, the guy from Oracle, describing his mentor Steve Jobs. Dr. Shrikant was an intensely focused singularity that translated ideas into movements that have transformed lives of and molded the thoughts of future leaders. As per the history of our institute and vividly narrated to me by my close friend and your professor, Abbas Ali Gabula, our institute was established, as you know, in 1981 with just 2 classrooms here at the Bhavans campus, and with a significant endowment and a princely sum of 75 lakhs provided by the Shriyans Prasad family, Jain family. But would you believe it? But by 1986, our institute had almost shut down for lack of funds. Yes, that's true. And this was when the administration approached Dr. Shrikant, who at that point in time was leading his consulting practice and also teaching at JBIMS. Fun fact, he used to be a teacher of Mr. Uday Kotak. Did he have the credentials to lead a business school, you may ask? For sure, yes. For one, Dr. Shrikant possessed an impeccable educational background. If you've read the biography of Sir, you will notice that he had completed a degree in economics from Cornell, followed by a BS and MS in engineering from Michigan and Illinois universities, respectively. And in 1976, much before some of you were born, he was already the CEO of Mukund Steel, but he left that job then to join Harvard's doctoral program. So I'm sure we can agree that there would be very few people on this planet who would have been better prepared for a leadership role in academia. He was very clear when he took up this job, and he had two conditions. One, he would have full independence in terms of managing the institute. And two, he would take up this role only on an honorary basis. In the process, Dr. Shrikant reinvented and again reinvented our institution and probably the entire management education philosophy in India for years to come. All of this done in a lifetime spanning almost 3 decades as our honorary dean of SPJIMR. Professor Murthy, whose visuals you saw earlier today, was also our professor of marketing. He reminded me, and he taught me marketing back in the 90s. He said Dr. Shrikant possessed the unusual strategic wisdom to practice two things. Usually companies practice either one or the other, and one is differentiation and cost leadership. Because he realized that if SPJIMR had to compete with the other IIMs and the MMIS programs, we had to be different, and if we had to survive, then we had to be independent, which ended up by SPJIMR pulling out of the Mumbai University to become independent. So all of you new students here, if you don't know this, our institute used to be part of the MMS program from 1981 to 1993. And then in fact, our batch was the second batch that actually had the independent MBA program. And then on top of that, we had to be frugal in our approach. Besides being an honorary dean himself, Dr. Shrikant also focused on keeping the number of full-time faculty on the rolls to a minimum. Some, and probably, ma'am, you may know this, all of the consulting fees that he received from the corporates was fully paid to SPJIMR during that time. And from a near-death situation of our campus in '86, SPJIMR, according to Mr. Murthy, had built up such significant cash reserves until the time of his departure in 2013. So that's the man for you. Which brings me to the second theme, Dr. Shrikant, the mentor. Now I digress a little bit and I move into football. As a massive football fan myself and a big Arsenal football club supporter since 1999, I could not see but a number of parallels between the longest serving and the most successful Arsenal manager of all time. You guessed it, Mr. Arsene Wenger, and Dr. Shrikant. A little bit about Mr. Wenger. He served as the manager of the Arsenal Football Club from 1996 to 2018. An incredible 22 years as a manager. And he got the nickname Le Professor because that was used by the fans and the English press to reflect Wenger's studious demeanor and personal philosophy, and for bringing incredible amount of new thinking to English football back in his time, including the very famous 4-4-2 formation in football, discipline, personal commitment from the players, the diet. Players were forbidden to drink anything, including alcohol, on days off and in the players' lounge. And he was the first guy to ask people to eat bland chicken instead of other kinds of food. And then he also encouraged people to take vitamin injections and have creatine, which reduced fatigue and improved their stamina. He spotted young talent early, creating the youth system, and of course, you know that he won a large number of trophies during that time, including the most amazing 49 matches, unbeaten, and Arsenal team of that year was called the Invincibles. Why did I bring up the name of Arsene Wenger? The parallels are there. Dr. Shrikant took up the job of dean in 1986 and led our institution for 28 long years, a bit more than Mr. Wenger. Just for perspective, I just checked this out. During his time as the dean of our institute, IIM Ahmedabad had 5 different directors. Formation, or his team and the faculty, is something that he chose himself. So instead of going with the Bombay University, that means going with the entrance exam, the curriculum, the final exams, summer internship with corporates, etc., he decided to take a break away from MMS and decided to go independent with SPJIMR. He personally picked his players and staff. According to Professor Kulkarni, who taught us marketing and headed our prestigious marketing department for a long time, he mentioned that Mr. Kulkarni himself was handpicked from the industry despite him not having real-world teaching experience. He fondly recalls one Monday morning, just a few hours before his class on cost and sales variances was to start. He gave a frantic call to Dr. Shrikant and said, listen, I honestly do not know how to teach this. And Dr. Shrikant at 6 a.m. explained to Professor Kulkarni how to take that class. And then, as you can imagine, Mr. Kulkarni was very relieved that evening. His diet for the students included the focus on what one can control, as you say, in your sphere of influence. In 2003, he told the graduating class of 2004, do not ascribe success solely to yourself and failures to external circumstances. Humility in success and equanimity in failures and are virtues worth pursuing and strengthening. My fellow classmates from the batch of 96 will also remember the 5 famous words of our dean. The onus is on you. A short summary of one of the mottos of our Insti as mentioned by Alfred North Whitehead, the English mathematician and philosopher, who said, the essential spring of all growth is within you. All that you can get from without is some food material or spiritual with which to build your own organism and some stimulus to spur you to activity. What is really essential to your development, you must do for yourself. And let me not forget one consistent mantra of Dr. Shrikant, the mentor, and that is share your learnings, your wisdom and knowledge. Many of the professors here who worked with him will recall the Thursday sessions. Usually it was the day off for all you students, where all faculty members got together, shared their learnings and their challenges to everybody. This was especially very enriching, especially for the less experienced and the junior staff. At this stage, I would also like to quote a little piece that I learned from Sir. And it is from one of my favorite books of all time. And I kindly request, in case you've not read this very simple book, it's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. The mole tells the boy who's looking out in the wide open into the wild and asks, hey, what is that over there? And the mole, the animal, replies, it's the wild. Do not fear it. Imagine how we would be if we were less afraid. I can promise you Dr. Shrikant's motto was about taking those, being fearless, taking those big leaps of faith and making sure that you succeed. And then I come to the third and most important aspect of Sir. And let me take some time to discuss Dr. Shrikant, the missionary. There are two contextual instances I will describe in my preamble to these two tributes. In 2008, and I think probably many times before that, Dr. Shrikant wrote, and you read his pieces that he mentioned this many times, the British parliamentarian Lord Macaulay set in motion a strategy for colonial rule in India. According to Dr. Shrikant, the sheer accuracy of his prediction many years before and what followed is shocking. Macaulay said about 150 or 200 years ago, I have traveled across the length and breadth of India, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such wealth I have seen in this country, such moral values, people of such high caliber, that I do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, her culture. For if the Indians think that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-respect, their native self-culture, and they will become what we want them to, a truly dominated nation. Dr. Shrikant was very clear. We needed to counteract this, and this is what he wished to attempt in our small way at this institute in Andheri. Ms. Vinita Singh, who's probably here somewhere in the audience, from the batch of 94, and that was the last batch of the MMS program, spoke to me prior to this, and she was a research assistant under Dr. Shrikant in the 90s, early 90s, and she reminisces. Dr. Shrikant working with a team at SPJIMR, I think Dr. Parimal Merchant was part of the team, and ASSOCHAM, the industry body, with the support of Mr. Viren Shah, Chairman Emeritus of Mukund Steel, had prepared a very important report on social development in India and the need for public-private partnership in this sector. It was very clear that neither the government by itself or the private sector or the NGOs working in isolation could deliver the success that they required. They were supposed to deliver a 1-hour presentation to Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao in 1991. What was supposed to be that 1-hour session ended up with an all-day session. Mr. Narasimha Rao cancelled all his appointments for the day, and on that day, what I'm told is that the entire opposition and Mr. Narasimha Rao along with his cabinet colleagues, including Mr. L.K. Advani, Manmohan Singh and Ghulam Nabi Azad, listened to that particular presentation that day. Dr. Shrikant's vision plus the ASSOCHAM report became the perfect recipe for what was to come and eventually define SPJIMR and maybe management education in India. The DOCC summer project that we do, ADMAP, the family managed business program, and much later Abhyudaya. And very nicely indicated in our school's mission statement. Through the programs and activities conducted with in-house resources and also functioning as an intermediary, it will extend its activities beyond the MBA markets to other segments of the Indian society in business, public, and social work. Let me take a break and tell you about something that two of my classmates and I did in the summer of 1994. The DOCC project was just about starting to take shape. It was in its infancy. And many of our classmates, especially those from finance, were worried about losing out to other institutes who had more formal summer placement programs. Okay, this was the second year that we're doing it, and imagine in the context that all the colleges in Bombay, all the IIMs have got their summer internship at banks and in financial institutions. And we are supposed to do the DOCC. To be fair to the finance MBA students, my batchmates, and with no disrespect to anyone at SPJIMR or outside, our campus at that point in time had built up a solid and better reputation in marketing and organizational behavior compared to finance. And it's certainly not our stronger programs compared to the IIMs or Bajaj or FMS. So my classmates, Aditya Somani and Ranjan Banerjee and I were truly delighted to have received this opportunity to do the DOCC project. And in the middle of the summer of 1995, the project DOCC that we took up took us to the interiors of Rajasthan to a little village called Mulasar, which is in the largest district of Nagaur. And we worked with the Somani Family Trust to work on a village project. Ranjan Banerjee was a metallurgical engineer, and he used to work with Tatas, and he knew engineering very well. Aditya was fantastic at working his skills with people management, and I was fairly okay at my creative abilities. We then worked that summer in the heat of Rajasthan. We entirely mapped the village's water supply system, suggested changes how they could save water, and we also designed a very interesting waste management system for Mulasar. And I still vividly remember, on the day we left to get back to Bombay, the rain god smiled auspiciously and the village received its first big rainfall in ages. And Dean Shrikant's dreams for DOCC and SPJIMR bore fruit when our project was selected as the best summer project that year by multiple institutions, including the very famous NITI. And in a snap, many of us had understood the power of Dr. Shrikant's vision. I'm reminded of the lines from Jim Collins in his famous book, Great by Choice, where he says, "Fire bullets first, then your cannonballs." Basically, the essence of what he says is that there are some companies that deliver 10x success in the market. In fact, these companies deliver better than those with big innovations and massive predictive genius. These 10xers will use empirical validity using low cost, low risk, low distraction tests or experiments, and then based on the learnings, then they concentrate the resources to fire a cannonball, enabling large returns from concentrated bets. And my simple submission is that Dr. Shrikant and his team have done that for you. DOCC, FMB, Abhyudaya, and many more are all cannonballs waiting to be fired faster, stronger into the market. I think it's a good time where I'm going to request Sandhya to come back on stage and share a prayer that Dr. Shrikant shared with us in 2007. A prayer taken from the Kathopanishad.
सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शांति 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 हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि
Thank you once again, Sandhya, for the graceful rendition of that prayer that Dr. Shrikant used to insist be played before, many of the sessions. So, what this means, this prayer, and I'm just repeating for those people. May the knowledge of the divine protect both of us, the student and the teacher. May he nourish us both. May we both work together with great energy at the physical, emotional, and intellectual level. May our study be thorough and fruitful. May we attain what we attain be bright and brilliant. After we have gone through this, and I love this part so much, may we never quarrel or hate each other. May the ambience be peaceful, the body, the mind, the immediate environment, and the nature and the cosmos around us. I mention this prayer, this beautiful prayer here, because eventually our relationship with the Institute is that of a mutually rewarding and respectful partnership, certainly with our faculty. So the question in your minds will be, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for the Institute? Or importantly, how do we as students and alumni support Dr. Nagaraj and his amazing team to take the vision of Dr. Shrikant into 2031, when our institute will be celebrating 50 years of existence? For one, we need to reflect on our history, our rich history. From almost coming from the brink of shutdown, we rose from the proverbial ashes and even delinked ourselves from the Bombay University. That independence gave us the freedom to select the most meritocratic student body and the most talented faculty members. And importantly, we enjoy the freedom to select our programs, the subjects, and also pursuing our twin objectives of influencing management practice and supporting value-based growth. But let us also not forget that this freedom and the resultant power that we enjoy comes with even greater responsibility. Personally, I can give you countless examples from my own personal and professional life of how Dr. Shrikant's guidance and philosophy have helped me. It came to the surface most recently during the COVID crisis, when I had to manage my entire business for many months, in fact almost 2 years, working from home without being able to physically be present at office, managing multiple challenges around the country, including deaths of employees, mental issues, and of course, business continuity challenges. And I promise you, friends from the audience, it is not your discounted cash flow. It was not the queuing theory principles that I learned in college, or the marketing mix that helped me during this time. It was a sheer spiritual strength inside me that I had initially learned at this institute. And for that, I'm sure my batchmates, our alumni and I shall be eternally grateful. If I may take the liberty to refer to Kenichi Ome from the book, The Mind of the Strategist, eventually good strategy means you need to look at your customers, your own corporation, in this case SPJIMR, and competitors. Mr. Ome says, strategy is defined as the way in which a corporation endeavors to differentiate itself positively from its competitors, using its relative corporate strengths to better satisfy customer needs. So, sir, here is my wish list for SPJIMR's roadmap to 2030. And I hope we build on the strengths of the essence of SPJIMR that sir built. And hence, as a group, let us take a pledge to continue to keep our mission values and Dr. Shrikant's teachings as the North Star. One, let us pray and work hard to support our dean and faculty to never stray away from the path of constant innovation, value-based education, and ensuring we believe in creating leaders that will lead organization not just with their brains, but also with their hearts, minds, and souls. And as we have always done, let us give the power and freedom to our faculty to create cutting-edge research and pedagogic methodologies that will eventually shape the future of businesses and society. Let us ensure we seek out and admit the best of the student body that is talented, brings diverse mindsets and experiences from around the world. And let's ensure that we give these students a world-class experience while attending our programs, benchmarked versus the very best programs in the world. A little reminder that in the future, each student will require a unique and customized MBA program that is relevant for his or her needs. So let us please evaluate the option of customized programs instead of the traditional cookie-cutter approach of marketing, finance, operations, or information technology. Let us put into place a scanning and forecasting mechanism that's able to read the developments in the external environment. You read in the papers today how MBA schools, the Stanford or the Wharton graduate school, actually, there was the AI that actually beat a number of students in their operations management course earlier this week. So people are worried in terms of what AI is going to do to the MBA program. Let us work with our industry partners to truly understand what they need to create their own bright and profitable futures and ensure we partner with them in their own journeys. Let us, as we've always done, listen to our alumni of more than 4 decades and invite them to help us improve our road to 2030. And let us not forget, almost more than 2/3 of our alumni grew up in the shadows of Dr. Shrikant. And many of them, just like me, will more than fulfill Dr. Shrikant's ambition to integrate industry practitioners into SPJIMR's academia. And finally, let us ensure we never forget to serve the societies that we live in and give back more what we have taken from them. This, I have no doubt that we will always be successful. Dr. Shrikant, if you're listening to me this evening, I hope I have made you proud, sir. You will always be the human being I looked up to, the mentor who guided me in my early days, and the missionary who provided us the path to a brighter future. To end the session, I request Sandhya to render a final prayer, something that she suggested that we do today. This prayer was written by Parmachari of Kanchi, Sri Chandrasekhara Saraswati, to be sung in the UN Assembly by Srimati M.S. Subbalakshmi during its 50th anniversary and dealt about the universal brotherhood and peace as enshrined by the Sanatana Dharma. Sandhya.
मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं आत्मवदेव पराणपीं पश्यत आत्मवदेव पराणपीं पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममां क्रमणं त्यजत परेष्वक्रममां क्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृजेत्रीं जननीं पृथिवीं कामदुःखास्ते जननीं पृथिवीं कामदुःखास्ते जनको देव सकल दयालु जन को देवः सकल दयालु दाम्यत दत्त दयत्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्त दयत्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and it's an absolute honor to be in front of you. I hope you enjoyed the event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for such an insightful talk. We now open the floor for Q&A from the audience.
Hi, sir. My name is Yashwant. I really loved the parallels you drew between Mr. Arsene Wenger and Dr. M.L. Shrikant. So you mentioned Dr. M.L. Shrikant used to pick his own team and empower them. So I have a question for you. How do you, pick your team or empower them? And what are the challenges you face on your way at Nivea? And how do you ensure that what you've envisioned and even this, people who are working, they also have the same vision and are motivated to, keep up with that?
Thank you for the question. So we have two fundamental driving decision trees that we use at Nivea. One is called our 5 core values that drive all our decision making. And then there are what we call the 5 behaviors for success. The 5 core values are, and one of them is trust. And we have something called 5 behaviors for success. And one of the things that we do in our company is we believe that we have to select the brightest people as our direct reports and therefore trust that they will do their job. And that's been certainly my endeavor during my 6 years as the managing director of this company. I've had 2 teams of management teams who worked with me with an average tenure of about 3 to 4 years under me. So I think only 1 person or 2 people quit during that time. And it was very clear, is about spend the time to personally select the person that you can trust, who is functionally competent, and then make sure that, listen, you give full responsibility to them. And that's not what happens across our teams. And we've also done that. We have a team which is basically the direct reports of the directors. We follow the same principle. We're roughly about 50 people under the directors, and we follow the same principle. And we're constantly monitoring that group. We're training them. We're sending them for international assignments. And that's really worked for us. And that's really where I've personally selected all the 10 members of my team during my time here. And it's never been a case where I've had to overlook somebody's shoulder to see what they're doing. Thank you.
I'm Prajwal here, this side. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. One question I had was, there were a lot of values that Dr. MLS stood for. So what do you think as management students today here, sitting and hearing to this, could be very relevant for us and could be like the guiding lights?
I can tell you, how many of you are second year students here? Okay, fewer more first year students. I think for second year students, I would, and certainly for first year students, Dr. Shrikant actually mentions in one of his speeches about inflection points. And inflection points are typically when you lose jobs or when you've had some personal tragedies in your lives. It's there in the book Conversations. And he says, use inflection points to make some of your biggest changes in your life. Right? And that will absolutely make a big difference to your lives. So my point towards youngsters is, as you leave campus, the risks are few. I mean, your risk-taking abilities are much higher. If you ever want to take something that you're truly passionate about, make sure that you take those leaps of faith now. And then later on in your life as well, whenever you see something not working, use that opportunities to learn and make the biggest changes in your life. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Thanks for the beautiful speech. My question will also be on similar lines of what Yashwant asked. You mentioned Arsene Wenger and the way he invented the 4-4-2 formation. I could also draw parallels with Mr. ML Srikant. He not only did a very big structural change by going independent, plus not opting for 5 directors. So when going for such a huge change in your organization, how do you evaluate the risks you are facing and which parameters are of utmost importance?
So typically there are what I would first define, there are some stable industries in which you operate and not so stable industries that you operate. So technology is one where, as you can imagine, in semiconductors or in, let's say, in the software space, big changes happen literally, 3 to 5 years. So there you got to be constantly constantly transforming yourself. And if you remember, the people who really succeed are people who are paranoid all the time, like Andy Grove, right? Remember this famous talk about being paranoid. So in those industries, you got to be paranoid, more paranoid than when you're in more stable industries. And football clubs sometimes can be fairly unstable places. Okay, if you go back in time, about 5 years back, I can tell you Arsenal were not in a good place. Right? We've had Unai Emery, who came in as the manager. We had to leave him. We had massive changes of players. And it's after a long time where we've given the current manager, Arteta, some time to settle his players. Right? So it takes time. You got to figure out which industries that you are in. In more stable industries like ours, you only make significant transformation sometimes when the business model is broken. And either you're not getting your top line growth, or either your profitability is not getting, or you have a serious problem with the engagement with the organization. And that's when you make serious transformations. But otherwise, in our industries, typical transformations tend to be functional. So let's say around digital transformation in sales, or let's say upskilling people to be more digitally savvy, etc. So we are less. I would say we are also paranoid, but we are less paranoid than, let's say, people working in high change industries. Thank you.
Hi, sir. My name is Debru Potar, and I never got to meet the great man, Dr. ML Srikant. But thank you so much for walking us through his legacy through your words. I have 2 questions. Firstly, you mentioned about a vision that you have for SPJIMR when it turns 50 years old. In your view, what do you envision can strengthen the relationship between academia and the industry beyond what is happening right now in the form of guest lectures or internships and whatnot? And secondly, you mentioned about how you overcame a lot of obstacles, borrowing from the world of spirituality, especially during the pandemic. If you can throw some light onto some practices that you personally follow or followed that can benefit young professionals like us early on in the industry. Thank you.
So I would include a third set of stakeholders. Your first question, you were talking about academia and industry. I would actually look at one of the key stakeholders, and that's students like you. And there's an increasing move where you're going to see what is called as a long tail. And let me try and explain what this is. If you go back in time, even when we were in college in the early 90s or even in the early parts of the century, we were still working on large segmentation. Okay, when you're looking at large segments in the market, and you will find, Professor Kulkarni would remember the times when he said, listen, you got to segment the markets, and then you pick up 4 or 5 big segments, and then figure out how do you position, the classic STP. But over time, what we're realizing is what we call as the growth of the long tail, which means that more and more you're going to find micro segments in the market in pretty much every industry. And that's driven by the way the media is working, the way consumers are exposed to media, etc. And I can clearly see that happening in the academic world. I can promise you what you require for your success, what you really want, might not be the same sets of electives that you want from the finance. You may want to pick up something from finance, something from marketing, and maybe you want to do something different. And very different from somebody sitting on your right and somebody sitting on your left. So my view is that that's going to hit academia, and for business schools, rather than provide these cookie-cutter approaches to providing programs, I think there is an opportunity and clearly a need for you to create individualized programs for individual students. And there are already schools that are already doing that, right? So that would be my hope for SPJIMR for 2030. And the second piece, what really helped me, and this is a secret some people know in my office, I decided to take up learning the guitar in the middle of the crisis. I had a guitar teacher. I had not known how to play the guitar. Struggled many times in the past, but I got this particular instructor who was roughly half my age, a 24-year-old guy. Just before the pandemic, he had come to my house and I told him, please do not teach me how to read music, because I fail very badly at that. Okay, I don't want to learn notes. If you play the guitar, you know that you start by learning the notes. But I told him, listen, what? I want to learn the chords. And right from day one, I said, I want to learn the chords, number one. Number two is I'm working all the time, so don't give me lots of homework so that, I can do it at my own pace. And there are some days when I might be traveling, so be a little bit flexible. So just before the pandemic, he taught me all the basic chords, and then the pandemic happened. And then we had to go online. And he also disappeared because he was also busy with stuff. Every night after 12, I used to spend literally, because all day you're busy with all the different fires you were fighting. And that 1.5 hours from 12 to 1:30, I was spending time looking at YouTube videos and learning the guitar. And I set myself a target that on my 50th birthday, that I would play 10 songs on my own and sing those 10 songs on my 50th birthday, which was basically last year. And that's what I did. And that kept me sane all throughout. And I was superbly excited when on my 50th birthday last year, which, sorry, let me just say, is basically in my dean's birthday is on Jan 23rd, my birthday is on Jan 25th. And last year, on my birthday, I actually played 2 songs in front of my friend, but I certainly had learned more than 10 songs. So that kept me sane all during my time. Maybe one last question in the interest of time.
Hello, Mihisha Takkaria. Thank you for your wonderful session and happy birthday in advance.
Thank you.
So my question is, what are the defining qualities of Dr. Shrikant that you have inculcated, and how it has helped you in the growth through your rewarding career?
So I have to be honest. He was one of the initial engines for our growth, and pretty much for all our growth. So over time, and we have inculcated many different values. But one thing that so one thing I told you already is about being fearless, is going into the dark. And I use something that he taught me during my college days, is that you got to have a love for ambiguity. Okay, and that's something we learn at campus a lot. And I can tell you, we are far ahead of a number of other campuses. Our students are far ahead of a number of other campuses when it comes to dealing with ambiguity. I've often found many other campuses, you got to give them lots of information, lots of numbers, and then people, do perfectly well. Our students, I can tell you we have a number of SPJIMR students at Nivea. We're far good at taking the ambiguity and creating sense out of that. And Dean used to tell us one thing, if I send you into a dark room, okay, be the person to find the light switch and put on the bulb. Okay, and that truly has been embraced by many of us, and certainly by me, because one of the things that I genuinely love is to go into uncertain environments and create structure out of that. I must admit that's one thing that I did learn from Dean during his early days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Surya Tahura, sir, to deliver a vote of thanks.
It will be a brief vote of thanks, but honoring all the people who have made this event possible. So I would like, first of all, to thank all of you for being here and joining us today, and also those who are online. And it's a very special memorial lecture, I must say, Neil, in the honor of the late Dr. Shrikant. I feel honored to have been here and be able to hear about some of your memories, some of your insights, some of your learnings. As even though spiritually he is my father, but I've been working with him only for 1 year. Right? So I feel very proud and I feel very honored. And we are all honored that we benefited from this amazing opportunity that you shared this legacy with all of us. So we hope that this event has provided valuable insights into Dr. Shrikant's contribution, both as a mentor, a leader, and a missionary, to take up your title, in the field of management education. And I'm sure, and I can maybe gauge that by the reaction from the audience and the passionate, let's say, question from the students, that his legacy will continue to inspire us to strive for excellence and make really a positive impact in the world. So, Neil, I would like to express my gratitude to you and for sharing your personal experience and insights about Dr. Shrikant. I would like to thank you also for bringing these amazing, melodious, and inspiring voices. I know that Dr. Shrikant would have been, let's say, really happy to hear your voice. And he was very fond of music, and especially also about this Stotram, or this, let's say, religious, let's say, kind of inspiration. I would like also to thank, so I have written all the names of this. I cannot hold 15 names of this ADMAP committee who have worked really very hard to make this event possible. So there is Jatin, please, you can raise your hand. Vatsal, Nitish, Sabarish, Daksh, Akashdeep, Muhammad, Syed, where is he? Not here. Suvik, just here, yes. Nidhi, Rajvi, Zarak, Shraddha, Jagan Nivasan, and Karthik. So special thank also to the family of Dr. Shrikant, because it's really, when we look at you, it brings us the memory of the liveliness And it's our tribute, and it's really our wish that you have enjoyed this, this lecture in honor of Dr. Shrikant.
Thank you very much for having us, inviting us, and making us a part of this whole organization. And after so many years. Thank you so much.
And finally, I would not finish without a special thank to my special friends who have helped me also when we didn't know what to do, how to do, and so on. So there is Abbas, of course, a big thank to him. There is Jagdish, always a buddy to whom I can go to ask for some question. And Chandrika, who is not there, who has been very much involved, as you all know, in making all this possible. So thanks a lot. That's all. I would like to invite you all now to have dinner all together, right? Just across.
Just before that, may I request Neil sir to kindly accept the token of appreciation from our side.
May I please request the dignitaries to come on the dais for a brief photograph?
Ma'am, please come. May I also request the CWIL members to come on stage to have a quick photograph with the dignitaries. In the meantime, participants, thank you for being here. You may please proceed outside for dinner.
बोल दिया